Hey everyone, in this series we're going to be helping you level up your data analysis skills by rebuilding Excel's most commonly used functions in Elixir so that you can reuse your existing Excel knowledge that you already have. In today's video, we're going to be rebuilding Excel's find and search functions. With that, let's get started. Alright, so if we go over here on the right side of my screen, we can see that in the last video we made this length function to mimic what Excel does with its length function. And we also created this helper convert to string function. So because we've already built this, we don't need to rebuild it. I'm just going to go ahead and collapse it to save space. And so delete this. So all I've gone ahead and done here is I've just replicated, as opposed to repeating every input every single time and retyping hello world or integer or whatever. I've just gone ahead and put them here in one cell, and then when we build our find function up above, we'll go ahead and just put it on each one of these, and then we can just look at all the outputs at the same time and compare everything in one full swoop with what we've got over here in Excel. Okay, so before we dive into coding and whatnot, let's go understand what Excel's find function's doing. So here, go back over to my Excel documentation. So we'll go click on F to search for find. Here we go. So here's the find function. It says finds one text value within another, and it's case sensitive. Case sensitive meaning it matters whether you search for, it matters whether the letters or phrases you're searching for are capitalized or not capitalized. So if we click on this, we can get a better description. And let's go scroll down a little bit. Okay, here we go. So there's three variables, three parameters we can pass to this function. A find text, within text, and the start number. And so the find text, so the first two are required, meaning you have to put them in order for the function to return you something. Okay, so the find text is the text you want to find. Makes sense? Within text, the text containing the text you want to find. Got it? And then the start number is optional, meaning you can pass it or you don't have to. It says it specifies the character at which to start the search. The first character is within text. The first character in within text is character number 1. If you omit the start number, it's assumed to be 1. So what this is saying is that if you don't give a start number, it will just automatically default to 1. Okay, that makes sense. So in order, here we're going to add a little bit of code just as we go ahead and test something out. Okay, but before we do, we need to go over to our Elixir documentation. And so for this example, we want to go down to our Regex function. Remember, right, so we've got a standard library, right, just like we talked about last time, right? We have these built-in data types, and then from there, we have these additional data types that are built on top of our base data types, right? So those are the base data types would be like the foundation of the house or the pyramid, right? And now we're going one level up. And so if we see that, yes, here we go. Regex, right? Which is short for regular expressions. Okay, so before we jump into the Regex module, let's understand what are regular expressions. Okay, so if I click on our Regex module, it says it provides the regular expressions for Elixir. Okay, what is that? Regex is based on PCRE, Perl compatible regular expressions, and built on top of Erlang's remodule. More information can be found at this module documentation. Okay, so I've gone ahead and open it up in another tab. Okay, this module in Erlang. Now again, not to get confused, we're dealing with Elixir, but Elixir is built on top of Erlang, so that's why they're referring to it, right? You don't have to know this, but just to help you understand what regular expressions are. Okay, it says it's a Perl-like regular expression for Erlang. Yep, and the matching algorithm are based on the PCRE library. What is the PCRE library? All right, well, if I can just go ahead and go to Wikipedia. Okay, PCRE, or Perl Compatible Regular Expressions, is a library written in C, a separate programming language, which implements a regular expression engine inspired by the capabilities of the Perl programming language. Okay, a lot to take in here. What is this saying? So, a group of people have used the C programming language to mimic or replicate the capabilities of Perl, which is a separate programming language. And in doing so, they've created this library, which Erlang and Elixir are reusing. And that's what they're trying to do with their regular expressions. Again, regular expression, all that really is just a fancy term for doing what Excel's find and search functions do, where we're just going to try and find some text within a larger group of text, right? Could be a word or a phrase within a paragraph or a page, or whatever it is we're looking at. Okay, so with that, let's jump back to our documentation. Okay, it's based on PCRE. Yep, we know that. Now let's go check out the functions. The function we want to use is the run function. Okay, and so we can see right here, it runs the regular expression against a given string until the first match. Okay, so, and then here we can see, here's the regular expression we give, the string, so in this case, hello world, and then the options. So what are the options? Here are three options you can pass. What you want it to return, what we want it to capture, and what we want to offset. For our case, we're only going to be looking at the first and third options. So let's go ahead and try and just build a sample and see how this works. So again, remember this is Elixir's pipe operator, meaning we're going to pass the hello world value to whatever function we have afterwards. So we're going to look at regex. Yep, here's our regular expression structure, and we want the run function. Okay, and yep, notice again, we need to give it a regex, a string, and some options. Okay, well, how do we write a regex? What is that? All right, so if we scroll down a little bit further, we could see, okay, here's our example. So we need a tilde-r and two backslashes. Now, what this is saying is tilde-r, yep, here you go. Actually, sorry, something I haven't even explained yet. So what's really cool about Livebook that we're writing in, right? We can just hover over something and it'll spit out the documentation for us. So we don't even have to do what we're doing on the left side of the screen here. So for example, let's just back up. I'm gonna go all the way. Let's go all the way to the top of regular expression, right? See it says here's the documentation. So I could just hover over regex, right? I don't even have to have the documentation over. But we can see it says provides a regular expression for Elixir, right? So it's all written out here, and we can scroll down, right? Here's some examples, just like they've got here, right? We can do all of this without having to go search for it and find it. Really, really cool feature. All right, so anyway, with that, let's go back to the run function. All right, so tilde-r, what is that doing? So this is what we have to type to handle or to type in regular expressions. And so with that, whatever we want to search for, we're going to put within these two backslashes. So in our example, let's say we were searching for a capital W, okay? And then we want to, oh, that's right, because this passes the string, I can't use a pipe operator here. And the reason being is, if we were to pipe this in, it's going to pass it right where this regular expression is. So basically, our hello world would go where the regular expression should be. The regular expression would go where the string should be, and it wouldn't know what to do. Again, we can here. Let's just run it, and I'll show you. We get an error, and it's saying it doesn't understand what it's trying to do, right? Because it's expecting a regular expression or something like a regular expression structure. and then a string, where we're passing a string, then a regular expression. So with that, let's go ahead and get rid of this. So we're saying we want to search for W in hello world. And if we try that, okay, so that's giving us a W. Why is that? Well, that's because of this first option, right? Return. It says when sets to index, it returns the byte index or the number and the match length. But it defaults to binary, meaning it's just going to return the thing that you're searching for. So if we go ahead, okay, so for our first option, let's do return. And then you have to do this little colon afterwards to let it know, okay, now here, what's the thing you want to search for? And we want to search for, over here, a colon index. Index. And so in Elixir, these things are called atoms, which just means it's, right now we're defining a variable whose name is itself. So if you were to define the variable x, where it equals the letter x, that would be an atom. So that's all we're saying here. So we want to return the index. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so let's see. So I think, yeah, we want this 6. So if we count it, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So notice hello world, or running hello world in this regular expression, when we search for the W, it gives us everything up to the W. Whereas I believe in Excel, if we search for, so let me search for W, notice it's 7. Okay, so the reason for that is Excel actually counts the W, where Elixir is counting up to the W, or up to the thing you're searching for. Okay, so at least we've got a good working case here. So with that, let's go back up to our text, and let's go ahead and start creating a simple, what's this, a find function, right? Where with this, we're going to have an input, and what we're going to do is we're going to, okay, we've written our function. Now let's go ahead and copy paste this, right? No sense in rewriting it. Okay, and instead of hello world, we want our, oh, actually, so what is our input in this? So we need 2 different inputs. So we're going to have our regular one, the thing we're passing, whether hello world, an integer, decimal, whatever data we're passing. And then we'll say, here's the phrase to search. And so with that, we will replace this W. And so I'm going to use this £, and open and close curly brackets. Why is that? Because if I want to pass a variable here as phrase to search, right? Say I want phrase to search to be W, and I just did this phrase to search. It is literally going to search for the letters phrase to search, or this word, in hello world. That's not what we want. So in order to pass a variable in place of that, we put a £, with open and close curly brackets. And so now it's saying, okay, whatever variable, whatever phrase you put in place of this variable, that's what we'll search for in hello world. Okay, so with that, let's run our code. Oh, yep, it's saying it's not used. Okay, so let's, right, this is saying we forgot to use our input variable. Okay, so with that, let's rerun our code. Everything looks great, no warnings, no issues. So now let's try, let's get rid of all of this, and let's try our, actually we don't need this anymore. Let's go ahead and delete this. Yep. So now let's try piping our hello world into our text dot find function. And so if we try and run it, notice it's going to fail. It's going to say, hey, that's not, you can't do that. So what we need to do is because we forgot to pass a phrase to search. So if we search for W, what does that return? Let's scroll down. Oh, sorry, it's giving the results of this, and we don't want these yet. So let me hide these. There we go. Okay, so it's giving us 6-1, but really what we want is this 6. I don't care about the rest of this. So how do we do that? Or yes, how do we do that? So before I could just go ahead and do it, we need to understand something that Elixir does called pattern matching. So what is pattern matching? So if we jump over here to the left side of the screen, so pattern matching, the match operator is not only used to match against simple values, right, but it's also used for destructuring more complex data types. For example, we can pattern match on tuples, right? So what this is doing in this simple example here, right, they've created 3 variables, A, B, and C. And so what pattern matching will allow Elixir to do is it will, if you can put your, you can use variables within different data structures. In this example, a tuple, right? And what you do is you can actually assign different different results to different variables. So what this is saying is actually, let's just copy and paste this over. I think this would be easier. So if we run this, but we said, hey, what is A? Well, in this scenario, by using pattern matching, A has been assigned to the atom hello, right? Or if we did B, right? B is now the string world, and similarly, C is 42, right? And so this is what we need to use. This, and it's not anything special you have to do. It's already built into Elixir, and it doesn't matter the data type, right? Again, let's use the same example we just had. So we had, let me just grab the results from here. So we've got this list. That's what these brackets are. Brackets mean it's a list. And we've got a tuple inside that. Oh, let me stop. We have a tuple inside of this with the number 6 and 1. Okay, so how can we get the thing we want out of this? How do we get to the 6? Right, because that's what we want to return, just like Excel does over here. Right, Excel returns a number. We want to return a number. So what we could do using pattern matching, just literally mimic the same data structure, the same list and tuple, right? And we can actually just start assigning variables to it. And so if I did this, okay, it runs, no problem. Now if I hit X, now we have access to the 6. Now we have access to that number that we wanted. Okay, so, and a cool little trick in Elixir, if you don't, right, notice if we ran this with Y, it give us 1. If we don't care about the rest of it, or if we don't care about that other variable, I could simply put an underscore here, get rid of this Y. Sorry, the X will still work, but the underscore says, hey, just ignore whatever this would pattern match against. Whatever this would be assigned to, just ignore that. So it's a cool little way to get the thing we want and not have to worry about any of the rest of the stuff, any of the rest of the information. Okay, so this is very helpful. So with this, again, remember, the result of our regular expression is going to give us this result or something like it. And so what we can do then is, let's go ahead, we can just copy paste our little pattern match, right? We can get rid of this. Let's go ahead and delete that. And then what we want to do, we could do this, right? But it's going to say, hey, you haven't used the X variable. So although we've assigned to it, we're not returning it. And Elixir, in its functions, it automatically returns the last thing you provide. And so right now, the last thing we're showing is this regular expression. So even though we've rerun our code, right, if I hit Control Enter, see, it's still giving us this list with a tuple in it, which is not what we want to return. So if I scroll back up, all I need to do simply is just type X, since it's the last variable or the last thing in the function, that's what will get returned. And notice our little error of, hey, you haven't used X yet, that goes away. So now if we scroll down below, we should be able to run this, Control Enter, and we get 6. That's exactly what we want. Okay, so now let's quickly go through what Excel is giving us and see why or why not we're not matching. Okay, so in Excel, remember we could pass the text we want to find. Check, we got that. The text we're searching within, we got that. Oh, but there's also this start number. Okay, we haven't handled that yet. We'll come back to that in a second. But also remember in Excel, okay, so we're doing the exact same thing, but Excel returns 7 where we're returning 6. Why is that? Well, if you remember, Elixir is basically counting these 6 characters, and it's counting everything up to the thing you were searching for. But it's not actually including it in the count, whereas Excel does. So in order to do that, we could simply just go back up, type in Excel or X plus 1, and if we Control Enter to rerun our code, now we're matching, right? So we could pass, so now we're matching the exact same thing that we have in Excel. But what if we wanted to do something, say 0? Okay, so that's going to return 5. And if I do 0 here, let's remove the start number. Oh, that's right, I don't need any control. Okay, we got 5. Perfect, we're matching. But let's say this scenario where like, hey, I want to start at letter 6. Oh, I hit the wrong one. Okay, now I want to start at letter 6. Oh, so now it's giving us 8. So what this is doing is it's saying skip the first 6 letters, then find the first occurrence of the letter or phrase you're searching for. Okay, so we're searching for 0 or for O. So it's saying skip the first 6 letters. So we skip the HELLO space and then start searching. And so it finds the O, and this is the 8th letter in our text. Okay, so how do we do that here? Because if we search right now, we're returning 5 because it's just finding the first one. So in order to do that, we need to go back to our handy dandy Elixir documentation. So if you remember, I said we're going to be using this offset function as well as return or option. And so what does this do? It specifies the starting offset to match in the given string. Right now it defaults to 0. This is the equivalent of the let's go back over here. That's equivalent to this start number. So that's all this is doing is, hey, how many letters do you want us to skip before we start searching for the text you want? So if we go back, okay, so if we go back to our function, let's just expand this out to make it more readable. Okay, so we've got our expression, we have our input, we want to return the index, and then finally let's offset, and we want, and this needs to be a number. Right now it defaults to 0. So let's see, I was seeing if they had an example, but they don't have an example. So I'm assuming it defaults to, or we need to pass a number. So let's go back to our Excel function. We passed the number 6. So let's try, if we did 6, no, if we did 6 here, let's rerun, Control Enter, and let's try this again. Okay, perfect. So now we're getting the same, we're getting the right, or we're getting the same answer. So that's excellent. But now in order to make this dynamic like it is in Excel, we need to pass a variable. So what do they call theirs? Just, start number. Okay, so let's do that here. Start num Okay, and we'll pass that here. Start num. And so just like Excel, right, we can have this set with a default value, right? So, and the way to do that in Elixir is we put these two forward brackets, and we'll put a 0. So what this is saying is start number is now an optional parameter. You don't have to pass something, and if you don't, we'll automatically default to 0. So we'll set offset to 0. But if you do pass something, then we'll override that 0 and we'll use that number instead. So if I gave it a 5, offset would then be 5. So let's try this. Okay, so let's run it again without passing a number, because again, it should default to 0. Let's see how that works. And so, yes. And this is giving us 5, like we had back here. If we defaulted this to 5, or to, actually, if we default this to 1, yep, it gives us 5. Perfect. So now, just like in the Excel example, if we pass 6, I should be able to pass 6 here. Excellent. And now we're getting the same answer because we're telling it, hey, with offset, skip the first 6 letters, then start finding the letter or phrase that you want. Perfect. This is exactly what we want. Now, we've handled the string. What about all these other types? Okay, so now let's start working through them one by one. We could just copy paste our code. Okay, so what did I do here in Excel? We could simply search for 5 and it'll return 1. Okay, so does that work? Let's see, if I search for 5, we're not going to pass anything again, so our offset will be 0. So if I do this, oh, so we got a, so here's the problem we run into here with Elixir, where we did in Excel. Excel will search the actual number, whereas Elixir is expecting a string, right? If you remember this run, it needs to be a string. So how do we handle this? Okay, so if we go back up to our code, remember we had this convert to string option here, so we need to reuse this. So what we can do is let's go back up here, and we're going to let's create a new input, and that will equal our input, and then we'll pass that to the convert to string function. And so now we'll replace our input with a new input. So all we're doing is taking the input and we're passing it through this convert to string function, which again, remember, it's going to check to see, is it a string? If so, just pass it along. If not, convert whatever that data type is to a string. I'll hide that to save space. All right, so, yep, we've converted that. Let's rerun. Check, see what this does. Now it's working. So what we had to do is we had to take our input, convert it to a string, and then search for in this case, the number that we wanted. Perfect. Okay, so let's see if this also works with decimals. So we'll just simply copy paste, Control C, Control V, or Command V. Okay, so what did we do here in Excel? Excel, we did the same thing. So we searched for 5 in our decimal, and so it's going to give 0 or 3. So it's counting, okay, the 3, the period, and then the 5. So that's what we're looking for. Awesome. Excellent. So decimal's working just like we expected. Now let's check date. So one thing I want to quickly note to you, and this is for when we get to date time, as opposed to, or sorry, let me back up. If you remember in our previous video, we talked about the concept of don't repeat yourself, or dry. Well, here's a perfect example. When we get to date time, we're going to want dates and times. So what I've just gone ahead and done is assigned our date to a date variable, our time to a time variable. That way we don't have to rebuild or repeat ourselves when we get to date time. Right? This way, if we need to make an edit or we need to make a change, we can just change it right here. We don't need to do it in more than one spot. Okay, so with that, let's say date. We're going to pass it to the text.find function. And I think in Elixir, or in Excel, yep, we still search for 5. Now here's something to pay attention to, right? Just like it's a similar problem we had in the text length function video, the previous video. Excel turns this date into an integer, which represents the number of days since January 1st, 1900. So when we use the find function to search this date, right, you would think, oh, 5 shouldn't be in there, but it's not searching the actual date. It's searching this integer, this number that represents this date, or that Excel uses to represent the date. And so then it's searching for 5 and it finds it right here. Whereas if we come and search here, use our date, yeah, right, we're not going to have a match here because remember, our date automatically gets converted to a literal string, right? It's not converted to any sort of number or integer or representation of a date like Excel does. It's a literal string, so that won't work. Whereas if we search for 1, let's try 1. Yep, 1 comes in the 7th position, just like so. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, just like we'd expect. So in this one, we won't match. We would never match Excel, but that's because of how Excel handles dates. So now let's try. So that's working. Let's try the time function. Okay, so yep. So all we've done is just defined a time, which is 3:50 a.m. with no seconds. Again, very similar to what we have here in Elixir or in Excel. And so let's try time. Oh, let's come back here to the right side. Time. Pass that to our text.find function. And what are we searching for here? We're searching for 5. Oh, that's right. We're searching for 5 all the way down. So let's see, 5. Okay, and that works just as we expect because Elixir turns our time into a literal string. So we get the 4th position. Excellent. Now notice we get the exact same answer here in Excel, but not for the same reason. So this is very interesting. So in Excel, right, you would expect, okay, maybe in the 4th position, just like we have here. But again, Excel translates this time, 3:50 a.m., into a decimal, which represents the percent of the day completed. And so really, if we count, it's going to start from this 0, right? It's going to use this decimal and look for the number 5. And so just by chance, you know, start with 0, so it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So just by chance, it happens to be the same, but not for the same reason, right? And this just happens to work in this scenario. But if we were to change it, more than likely, we would not get the same answer. If we even got an answer at all, right, from time. Because again, if we were to search for the number, say 6 or 7, right, we get no answer. But if we went and searched for 7 in Excel, we still get an answer because it's part of the decimal that Excel converts our time to. Okay, I think that makes sense. So now, what about date time? Will this work? Again, we've converted. We're just passing our variables, date and time that we've defined up here, so we don't have to rewrite it. And so what we could do is then pass our date time to our text.find function. And then we're going to search for 5. and it's saying there is no match on the right hand. Why is that? So let's, where's Excel? Where is it? Yeah, as Excel gives us an answer. Oh yes, sorry. Because time will never find the number 7. Yes, of course. So let's go back to this. Let's search for the number 5. Perfect. So it works. It's getting us it's providing the number 15, which is the number of letters in this string. And again, it works because we converted our date time to a literal string. Whereas again, Excel, totally different, because it's converting because it's converting the date time into this integer with a decimal on it, right? And so it's taking our date, our time, just like we had before, and combining them together so that you get a different answer down here. And so, so when we search for 5, yes, it's going to return 5, but it's finding it in the 3rd position right here in the integer, right? Whereas Elixir, it's finding in the 15th because it's converting it to a text. So again, this is going to be a common theme throughout these text functions, is for date time and date time, Excel will convert those to integers or decimals, where Elixir will convert them to literal strings. Perfect. So we've gone ahead and solved, or we've successfully rebuilt the find function. And so one other function I'd like to show you is the search function. It's really quick. It's almost identical to the find function. But before we do that, let's jump over to the Excel documentation and I'll show you why. Right, so find is, remember this, it's case sensitive. So let's go back up to the top. We hit S for search. Here we go, search. Finds one text value within another, not case sensitive. That's the only difference here. So this is really awesome. We can easily rebuild this real quick. So if we go back up top, we can, okay, we've got this find function we've built. If we simply copy paste this, okay, so now we'll define this as search to replicate Excel. The only difference here, the only difference is in regular expressions. They don't show it here, but in a regular expression, you could simply put this I here. And so what does that do? Okay, let me take you to another tab real quick. So here is a simple regular expression editor. And this is online. It's a playground. If you want to deep play around with regular expressions, go check this link out. Don't worry about finding it. I'll put it in the description box below. But what this allows you to do is to find actual to actually real-time see regular expressions. Now, why do I show this? Because here in regular expression, if you click over on the side for flags, case insensitive, that's what we want here. So I click that. Oh, notice it puts this I here. And so this, what it did is, if I get rid of it, right, notice it's only finding all the capital R's. Okay, make it case insensitive. Now it's finding everything where R starts. That's what we want. So if we go, oh, and before I jump over, one real cool thing about this web page is not only does it allow you to try different things, like say search for A through Z, right, which everything's there when it's case insensitive, but it also gives you a description down here below, right? And it's saying, okay, matches a character in the range of from A to Z, so all the capital letters, and it's case insensitive, right? Whereas if I got rid of this, oh, now it says case sensitive. So this is a really, really helpful tool. If you're not sure what to do, you're not sure what regular expression should I put in, what phrase should I search for, what's the best method of looking for things, this is a great tool to go check out. Or this way. It's a great tool to go check out. So now, let's go back to our Excel. Okay, so we've got our search function. And so let me jump over to the search tab, make sure we're getting the same results. Yep. And just like whereas searching for a lowercase w wouldn't have worked in find, it does in search because it's not case sensitive. So again, by putting this I here, we should make this case sensitive, case insensitive. Let's run our code, and then let's simply, we're gonna double click, hit Control or Command D to highlight all the finds, and then we can simply write it over, and we've replaced all our find functions with search. Now let's try and run it. Ah, perfect! It works on all of them. So let me just highlight this. Let's comment these out just to see the oh, this because this is still looking for, so just the exact same thing we had here in Excel, and now we've got the same answer, right? So we could search for, even though there's no lowercase w in Hello World, we could still search for it because search is, by definition of Excel, case insensitive. And again, all we had to do, right, the only difference between these two functions is this letter I. That's what makes all the difference here. Okay, guys, so we've built the find function, or we've rebuilt the find function from Excel and the search function from Excel in Elixir. And so what we're going to be doing in the next video is we're going to be going over the left function and understanding and rebuilding that and trying to replicate the same functionality from Excel in Elixir. So if this has been really helpful, guys, please like and subscribe. You know, we love putting this content out for you. If there's something you're interested in or something you want to see, a video you want to make, comments, questions, thoughts, concerns, please put it in the description box below. All links, documentation, again, I'll go ahead and link those down below. If you want to support the channel, please go check out TitanDealHub.com, where you can search for and find all the best deals on Amazon for free. Costs you nothing. With that, thanks so much for your time, and we'll see you in the next video.